You know, when you hear the word Iran today, your mind probably jumps to the latest headlines, right? But what if I told you that's just a tiny, tiny snapshot? To really get Iran, we've got to rewind way back. We're talking about one of the oldest continuous civilizations on the planet, with a culture that's been around for 5,000 years. So let's dive into that epic story. Okay, check this out. The famous philosopher Hegel, he gave the Persians a pretty incredible title, the first historical people. And he didn't just throw that around. What he meant was they were the first to build something more than just a kingdom. They built a true empire, one that brought a ton of different cultures together under one big idea. That's the kind of scale we're dealing with here. And if you want to see what that looks like, well, look at this. This is Persepolis. And these are not just a pile of old rocks. This was a global capital. You're looking at the stunning remains of a civilization that wasn't just a bystander in history. No, they were actively shaping it for thousands of years. All right, so how does a superpower like that even get started? Well, it all began on the Iranian plateau, with a bunch of different tribes coming together. And believe me, they were about to create something the world had never, ever seen. Okay, now this is where things get wild. What's so amazing is how fast this all happened. So on the left, you've got the Median Empire, kind of the precursor. But then a guy you've probably heard of, Cyrus the Great, takes that and explodes it into the Achaemenid Empire on the right. We're talking about an empire that stretched across 3 continents. It was literally the biggest thing the world had ever seen up to that point. But here's the kicker. It wasn't just about being huge. It was about being smart. This was the world's first real superpower, for sure. But get this. It was built on a model of tolerance. They respected local cultures and religions, which was totally revolutionary. They built the Royal Road, think of it like an ancient interstate highway system, connecting this massive territory. And they standardized money to make trade super easy. This was basically the blueprint for how to run a global empire. But, as we all know, no empire lasts forever, right? And this brings us to a huge theme in Iran's story. Incredible, unbelievable resilience. This is a story about being conquered and then coming back again and again. And it all starts with one of the most famous names in history. So this timeline really lays out a pattern you see over and over. First, bam, a massive conquest. Alexander the Great rolls in and takes over. It seems like it's all over. But then, you wait a few centuries, and a new, powerful, distinctly Iranian dynasty rises from the ashes. In this case, the Sasanians, who were so powerful they went toe-to-toe with the Roman Empire. This cycle, this rhythm of fall and rebirth, it's absolutely central to the Iranian identity. And if you need proof of just how powerful they were, look at this. This isn't some artist's fantasy. This is history carved right into a cliff face. That's the Sasanian Emperor Shapur I, literally capturing a Roman emperor, Valerian, in battle. I mean, can you imagine? This tells you everything. Before the Arab conquest, Iran was a global superpower, a full-on rival to Rome. So here's the really crucial part. You can conquer the land, but you can't conquer the culture. Even after they were defeated militarily, Persian culture was so influential, so sophisticated, that the conquerors ended up adopting it. Their systems of government, their art, their literature, it all got absorbed into the new Islamic world. It was like a cultural takeover from within, sparking this Persian Renaissance that shaped the entire region for centuries. And this quote from historian Bernard Lewis really nails the complicated feelings about this period. Because even today, that conquest is seen in 2 totally different ways inside Iran. For some, it was a blessing, the arrival of the true faith, Islam. But for others, it's still seen as a humiliating national defeat. And the fascinating thing is, both of those feelings are still very much alive. Okay, so all of this whole history of conquest and cultural survival, it builds to a massive turning point. The moment Iran is truly reborn as an independent nation on the world stage. But first, I want you to just let this number sink in. 850. 850 years. That's how long Iran wasn't really a unified, independent country. For almost 1,000 years, it was more of a geographical idea, a place ruled by one foreign dynasty after another. Arabs, Turks, Mongols, you name it. And then, 1501, everything changes. A local Iranian dynasty, the Safavids, comes to power. And they do something that hadn't been done in over 800 years. They pull the nation back together. They reunite the country under its own rule. pretty much creating the borders of the Iran we know today. And this was a huge, huge deal. It wasn't just about politics. The Safavids did something else that would define Iran forever. They made Shia Islam the state religion. Now, that's a different branch of Islam than their powerful neighbors, like the Sunni Ottoman Empire. And that single decision created this very distinct political and religious identity that really makes Iran, well, Iran. So you can see how this long, long history of fighting for independence and holding on to a unique identity, it's not just ancient history. It's the essential backstory you need to understand the roller coaster of the 20th century. And that struggle for sovereignty absolutely continued into modern times. You have huge events like the 1953 coup, where the US and the UK helped overthrow Iran's prime minister. For many Iranians, that and the decades of the Shah's rule that followed felt like just the latest chapter in that long history of foreign interference. And it all boiled over into the massive revolution of 1979. And that 1979 revolution was another one of those massive, earth-shaking transformations. I mean, think about it. It ended a monarchy that had lasted for 2,500 years. In its place, it created the Islamic Republic, a totally unique political system that's still in place today. And of course, it completely changed Iran's relationship with, well, pretty much everyone. So, where does this all leave us? What's the big takeaway? It's this. If you really want to understand Iran today, why it does what it does, you just can't focus on the last 40 years. You have to look at the full 5,000. You have to see a nation that has this deep memory of empire, of invasion, and most importantly, of an incredible, stubborn resilience. And trust me, that long memory is very, very much alive today.